Red Shellman.
I pinch.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bad Endings in Video Games, The Hidden Gems. So, this series started several months ago when I released my Bad Endings in Video Games Iceberg, which is about 4 hours long, and I encourage you to check it out. But y'all loved it so much, I love doing it so much, and there's so many more bad endings in video games to cover that I made it into a whole series, and now there's an additional 2-hour part that you can check out on my channel, Bad Endings, the Supercut. And now we're carrying on with 7 more bad endings today. I call it the hidden gems because I wanted to go as obscure as possible. You don't need to hear for the 1500th time about Chrono Trigger's bad ending, but if you haven't heard, check out the iceberg. No, these are more obscure ones that I found in some games that you may or may not have heard of, but these are bad endings that you kind of have to go out of your way to get. The way this series works is I'm going to go over a game, do a little mini review because I don't do reviews, and we'll go over the bad ending. I'll try not to spoil much, but if I am, I'll let you know before I do so. So, with that out of the way, I hope you enjoy the video. Please, if you like it, please hit the like button. It would help me out a lot. But without further ado, let's begin. Survival Kids on the Game Boy Color. So that might be a first on this series, a Game Boy Color game. Now, I swear I didn't plan this, it's just good timing. Apparently this game is getting a remake this year on the Nintendo Switch 2, and looking at it, what did I expect? But in this game, your goal is to survive and you're a kid, so surprise, surprise. You play as a character you name, either a boy or a girl. As far as I can tell, the only thing this changes is that the only other survivor that you meet will have the opposite gender that you pick. So if you play as a boy, you'll meet a girl, and vice versa. After you name your character, you start the game off on a boat with your father. Apparently you're out celebrating your 10-year birthday, and your father hands you a knife as a present. Now that might sound irresponsible at first, but I don't know, I'm from the South, we're all redneck as hell down here, ain't no big thing. But wouldn't you believe it, that night tragedy strikes and the boat unfortunately capsizes. Your character alone washes up on a deserted island with no one else around and, of course, has to try to survive. Now your main goal, besides just surviving, is getting off the island, and there's multiple ways of doing that, believe it or not. So right off the bat, you'll notice that this looks like Link's Awakening, which I thought was really cool. However, the goal of this game isn't really combat. You kind of want to avoid combat as much as possible. My first game over came when I encountered a tiger, which I thought, my half-dead 10-year-old flabby arms could stab to death with my knife, and it killed me, and I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But yeah, the enemies in this game, they're not monsters or goblins or demons. They're bears and mountain lions. I mean, what is this, Big Bend? Oh, and also Beedrill from Pokemon is in this game for some reason. Yeah, I just can't get away from Beedrill in these videos.
No, not the bees! Not the bees! Ah!
You also get 4 separate health meters in this game, which is pretty interesting, but in practice it really doesn't amount to much. You have a health meter, a fatigue meter, which are different, a hunger, and a thirst meter. Now in my playthrough, or at least as far as I played, hunger and thirst were never really that big a deal. There seems to be food practically everywhere, and water's pretty easy to get from the beginning of the game. Fatigue just means you need to sleep, and you'll be doing a lot of that. Besides Big Bend and Beedrill, your biggest enemy in this game is time. Yes, the days go by incredibly quick. I mean, it's honestly jarring how fast it goes from sun up to sundown. And when the sun is down, it's absolutely miserable trying to explore. You have to go to sleep for the night, and your fatigue will drain rapidly, so watch out for that. Now, at the end of each night, there's a counter that counts how many days you've survived. Most endings occur after you've survived 100 days if you haven't escaped the island by that point. And believe me, that doesn't take long at all. I'm telling you, these days are quick. Now, as far as I know, there's only one ending you can miss out on if you don't survive in time. But it's a neutral ending. It's not really bad or good, so we're not going to focus on that. In fact, there's 8 endings total, and I'm not going to spoil most of them or tell you exactly what happens. I'm going to get into one good ending, though, because I think it's just so cute and wholesome, damn it. So it's really not spoiling much to say that the good ending is you survive and you escape the island. But what if I told you that, in my opinion, the best ending is one in which you don't escape the island? And here's why. So I've already mentioned there's another character you can meet in the game. Their gender is opposite yours no matter what you play as. If you meet this character and help them survive as well, which is a whole process, and 100 days have passed, you'll get a time skip in which it says several years later, where you and this other character are just looking back on your time on the island, and they basically just say, yeah, we gave up on trying to escape. And then the other character says something so beautiful and wholesome that it, like, I don't know, made me feel something. She says, well, yeah, I mean, we don't want for anything here. We're happy. And I thought, man, that is so beautiful, right? I mean, they're happy there. Do we really got to go rescue these kids and bring them back home and put them in student debt and have them deal with fucking HR? Does that sound better than what they're going through right now? No, give me the fucking island. I want to go to the island, damn it. Kind of reminds me of this book I read one time called The Blue Lagoon. I don't know why, that just triggered a memory in my head, something vague. Now anyway, that's a good ending, but we're not here to talk about good endings. Oh no, y'all know this series. We're to talk about the bad endings. And there are a couple. I'm going to go over 2 that I think are, pretty dark and pretty surprising for a Game Boy Color game. So anyway, for this first bad ending I'm going to talk about, it is pretty dark, and it involves the other character. Remember, I told you can find on the island. Well, this other character isn't doing too good when you find them, and you actually have to nurse them back to health by feeding them. And after a while, they can fend for themselves, but at first, it's another mouth to feed. Now, there's a few ways to escape this island, one of which is finding an actual boat that's intact on the island, and you can get on this boat after solving some puzzles and escape. Now the thing is, if you try to escape with your companion character, but your companion character is still not doing well, you'll get one of these bad endings. As halfway through the trip, as you're on this boat, the other character will actually pass out and die. Yeah, that's it. And that's the bad ending. So you imagine she finally was able to get rescued, get off the island, and didn't even get a chance to make it off. She just died on the boat right there. So imagine the trauma your character felt because you just didn't feed her enough steamed clams or whatever. So that's really tragic, but that's not even the worst of it. Anyway, the worst possible ending is actually involving your escape. You see, without finding this other character, you alone can attempt to escape by crafting a crude raft. You get on this raft, and unfortunately, when you make it out to sea, well, your character finds out that it's a lot harder to survive on a raft in the middle of a sea, especially when you're 10 years old, because eventually your character runs out of food and water and slowly withers away under the hot sun and just gives up and I guess dies of either hunger or dehydration. That is incredibly sad and tragic for a 1999 Game Boy Color game involving kids. Yeah, not survival adults, survival kids. I can't imagine the new version being that dark. But anyway, that's just, oh man, again, you might as well have just stayed on that damn island. You have no idea how bad it can get. But yeah, this game is pretty cool. I'd recommend you check it out. If you can get a copy of it or you can find a version of it to play, that's all I'll say. I'd recommend it. So anyway, let's move on. Analogue, a hate story. This is a game released on Steam back in 2012. I remember it being somewhat popular at the time, but of course it's been forgotten in the years since by everybody except for me, similar to Train of Afterlife, which I talked about in my last Bad Endings video. The developer of this game has seemingly abandoned the platform. They haven't released a game in 5 years. Their last game was a lesbian road trip RPG adventure. Okay. Anyway, this game is pretty unique, but I will tell you outright that it is a visual novel. The only gameplay you're going to get is by answering questions, making choices, and running a command prompt at times. So if that's not for you, I totally get it. But I will be spoiling the story here. I'll be spoiling the ending and the beginning because this is one of those unique cases in which the beginning and end really don't matter. It's the middle part, the hidden story in between, that's full of spoilers, and I'm not going to be covering any of that, frankly. So if you want that, check it out for yourself. Also, side note, I drank a bunch of coffee this morning and now I'm like super shaky. Well, why am I telling you this? No reason. Well, just frankly so you know that I'm not an AI. I know many people wonder about that at times because I don't show my face, but no, I am not an AI. But let's talk about this AI adventure, shall we? In this game, you play as a space adventurer, a space bounty hunter, a space explorer. It really doesn't matter. You're not really given a name or a face. You're only given a mission. And that mission is to explore an abandoned ship that's been floating out in space for hundreds of years and download all of the data. You're only given one hint also, and that hint is if you need help, you're supposed to talk to the ship's AI, known as Mute, and she'll help you. You get to this ship and you get to a terminal, which I'll call a command prompt because it's just easier for me. It's in my brain that way. You get to the terminal and you attempt to download the data, but you can't without a password, okay? So your only option is to talk to the ship's AI. Only this ship's AI isn't named Mute, it's named Hune. Hune AE to be precise. I'm going to call her Hune because it's just easier for me. I hope that's okay with y'all. Anyway, Hune is ecstatic to talk to you. She's had nothing to do or no one to talk to for several hundred years, but she's been aware this entire time. So she wants to know as much as she can about you and the outside world. However, because of the ship's damage or age, you're not actually able to communicate with her directly. All you're able to do is answer yes or no questions, binary questions basically, to steer the conversation in a way that's favorable for you or for her. Now, you'll notice right off the bat she's very interested in you, especially in the outside world, and you can tell her what she wants to hear, or you can just make stuff up. I mean, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, but she'll ask you just a bunch of questions. You can't ask her for the password directly, but she will offer to let you read the ship's logs, diary entries, things such as, and she'll comment on what you're reading if you ask her. So she'll show you the ship's logs, and this is where the story of the game actually is, and I'm not going to spoil almost any of it. In fact, I'm going to spoil basically none of it. That's for you to decide if you want to play the game or not. And frankly, the story, it's kind of hard to get into, I'm not going to lie to you, for two reasons. For one, all of the names are in Korean, and my Japanese and English speaking brain kind of can't comprehend or remember these names, so it's hard for me to get attached. And for two, it ultimately doesn't matter because your goal is not to read through these entries. Your goal is not to find out what happened on the ship. You're only there to download the data and get the hell out of there, right? But you begin to read through these ship logs or skip through them. It really doesn't matter, and there's no way the game will know either way, but you read through these ship logs and Hune will comment on things that you're reading. And while you're doing this, Hune will interrupt you from time to time to ask you unrelated questions about the outside world, and it's clear that she's also trying to get you to like her. She even offers to cosplay for you. You can dress her up, her AI up that is, in any way that is available if you return to the terminal or the command prompt. Anyway, by reading through these logs and unlocking new logs by talking to Hune, you will eventually get the password in a roundabout way. It's not spelled out for you, but it's not hard to figure out either, frankly. Once you get the password, Hune will acknowledge that you're probably not here to read through these diary entries or talk to her, that you probably have an ulterior motive, and while you can't tell her yes or no, she will ask you that now that you have the password to go back into the terminal and to unlock some more data that she's not privy to. So here's where you can get a neutral ending. You can back out of the terminal now that you have the password, and you can just download the data you need and then just leave. And that's it. That's the end of the game. So you never know the story of what happened on this ship, why it's abandoned, and Hune is just left there for another, I guess, 1,000 years to wait for the next person to stumble across her in the middle of space, right? Now that's boring, so let's just go back and just do what Hune says. We unlock the data that she wants. And once you unlock this data, you really don't learn much more and you hit another wall. So when you go into the pause menu, you're given that hint again that you need to talk to Mute if you want help. You remember that. So you back out to the terminal where you can disable Hune temporarily and enable Mute. When you enable Mute, you realize that Mute is far different from Hune in almost every way. While Hune is more girly, shy, and frankly more secretive, Mute acts much more like an AI. While she does have a personality and she is a bit more crude, she's also a lot more helpful, and she doesn't really give a damn about you or what you are, where you come from. She's just willing to help you out. But she does give you a fatal warning. Mute will ask you if you've been talking to Hune, and then she says, don't listen to anything Hune has to say. Hune is a liar and a mass murderer. Oh boy. Now Mute won't tell you exactly what she means. Instead, she asks you to ask Hune for yourself, and she'll give you some data logs, which are actually questions that she or you will have for Hune. So you then back out and disable Mute and re-enable Hune, and as you're talking to Hune, you can show her these questions, and Hune is immediately like, well, why are you talking to her? You don't need to talk to her. Don't listen to that. Don't listen to her. But she ultimately has no choice as you read through the questions. So you read through a couple of the questions to her, which at first seem innocuous, like how are you and stuff like that. But after you read her a couple of questions, the screen gets staticky and the music becomes distorted. Side note, if I didn't mention, the soundtrack in this game is really badass. I recommend you check that out if nothing else. Anyway, the music becomes distorted and the screen becomes staticky, and Hune interrupts you to say, hey, by the way, coincidentally, and for no reason at all, the ship is now blowing up, and you get a time limit that appears on the screen of 20 minutes to shut off the reactor before the ship blows. Now, I took this to be awfully convenient, but the game does have an in-game reason as to why this is happening. So you'll have to shut off the reactor so that it doesn't blow up with you on it, ultimately ending you and the two AIs, right? So you back out into the terminal. Remember, you're not here for any of this. You just need to get the data and get the hell out of there, right? Remember. So this is the game's bad ending. I forgot to mention, there's only one bad ending in this game, but there's a secret bad ending that the game doesn't tell you is an ending, but I think it's just absolutely dark, and I'll get into that later, but I have to get through these first. So the first bad ending in the game can occur here. You might think, oh, the ship blows up, obviously. Well, there's a bit more to it than that. If you try to download the data now instead of shutting off the reactor, the computer will allow you to download the data, but you find out it takes over 3 days to do that. The computer then locks you out from doing anything else, and so you're simply there trapped, and the ship blows up and the game ends. The ending is called Bad Priorities, so yeah, think about that.
You blew it, schmuck.
Restarting, we get back to the terminal and we desperately try to shut off the reactor. It's a bit of a puzzle, but by now you should be pretty good at it, and it spells it out for you what you need to do, frankly. It's not that difficult. However, you do get a choice here. In order to shut off the reactor, again, it's a bit complex, but you'll have to disable permanently one of the AIs, either Hune or Mute. And this choice isn't as easy as you might think. Well, yeah, you've gotten to know Hune a bit. However, you don't know the full story, and you've been told by Mute that she's a mass murderer. If you disable Hune, you'll be stuck talking to Mute, who's a lot more helpful and honest with you, but you'll never get Hune's side of the story. If you disable Mute, you'll have to simply trust what Hune has to say. And of course, she can manipulate information if she needs to. She's the AI after all. So it's a choice that you have to make. Now, for the sake of completionism and to get to the bad ending I want to talk about, we'll have to disable Mute instead and talk to Hyun. So, disabling Mute, you go back to Hyun, who says the danger is now all over, and you can continue to ask her these questions. Finally, you get to the question that Mute has for her: why did you murder all of those people? And Hyun, unfortunately, doesn't confirm or deny it. She gives you some more information to read so you can make up your own mind. And as you read through this backlog, you're given some startling revelations about what happened on the ship. Again, I haven't covered any of it, but I'm not going to spoil any of it either. And it's up for you to make up your own mind on what you think of this AI, Hyun. Once you read through everything, you hit another wall, and frankly, you're done. In fact, you were done the moment you got the password, remember. So, once you're done reading everything, Hyun then comes out and says it outright that she is absolutely in love with you. She's in love with you, even though you're the first person she's talked to in hundreds of years. She's known it was meant to be, and she even drops hint at a marriage at some point in the future, if you're up for it. And she just wants to be with you. And of course, you can choose to reciprocate her feelings or deny them. To get to the endings I want to talk about, we'll go ahead and reciprocate her feelings. If you do, she's ecstatic and she's happy to hear it. Even though she knows nothing about you, she doesn't know your age, your gender, what you look like, or anything. She acknowledges all this, and she's only known you for a couple of hours or so. Keep that in mind. But she says it was meant to be, and she makes you an offer. She can turn herself into data that you can download onto your ship. Now remember, your goal was to download all the data anyway. So, here's where we get to the secret bad ending that the game doesn't acknowledge, but I think is absolutely dark and horrifying when I explain it to you. So, Hyun is ecstatic, and she tells you that she's going to turn herself into data, and you can no longer talk to her. Instead, you're to download her. So, you get back out into the command prompt and do what you're supposed to do in the first place. Download the data. Only this time, you're given an additional option on whether or not you want to download Hyun. So, you can choose to download Hyun, and she becomes basically your Cortana, or Echidna, I guess, depending on how you want to look at it, and that's the game's best happy ending. But you can also say no, you don't want to download Hyun, and the game ends. Now, why is this the darkest ending? Well, it's the darkest ending in my opinion because you just told Hyun that you love her, and she loves you, and she's ecstatic to finally get off of this ship. Again, an AI that may or may not be a mass murderer is desperate to get off this ship for some reason. Anyway, she tells you that she'll turn herself into data for you to download. So imagine this. Imagine she turns herself into data and you choose not to download her. So she's just forever then in limbo, wondering what happened. Did something happen to you? Did you leave? And she may never know. So you simply abandon Hyun after telling her that you love her and that you'll take her with you. That is unbelievably dark. Now, depending on what you think of Hyun after you've read through the story, you may say it's, deserved, or you may say it's cruel. Either way, the game ends and Hyun is left there forever alone in the dark, waiting for her savior that may never come. Anyway, check this game out for yourself. Again, I didn't spoil the middle part of the story because that's what all the juicy stuff is, but I recommend it. It is a lot of fun for visual novel fans. I think it's a bit overpriced in my opinion for what you're getting, so maybe wait for a sale. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good. So with that, let's move on. All right, we're on to the next one. And what do we have next? Oh, it's, you've got to be kidding me. Nope, it's no joke. Harvest Moon on the Super Nintendo itself has a bad ending. I mean, my god. I have a bit of a history with this game on this channel right now, so in case you haven't seen my bad endings iceberg, apparently in Harvest Moon DS there's a bad ending where you could take an axe to the mayor. Yeah, and in Harvest Moon A Wonderful Life there's a bad ending in which you can crush your father and Takakura's hopes and dreams by telling them to go fuck themselves at the beginning of the game. So there's that, but apparently there was a bad ending in this game as well. Although maybe not as dramatic as, say, attacking the mayor like in Harvest Moon DS, this game does have a bad ending, and it's honestly the saddest one that I've seen so far. I mean, I don't know, what's next for Harvest Moon? Is the damn moon gonna turn into the one from Majora's Mask and end the world if you don't farm enough turnips in time? I have no idea. Now, right off the bat, I do want to say I didn't get a lot of footage for this one because, frankly, it's hard to play. It's hard to go back to. I'm too spoiled by Stardew Valley. It's just such a good game. If you haven't seen Stardew Valley and you want to play a farming sim, go check it out. But Harvest Moon on a Super Nintendo was the first of its kind. It is the first, as far as I know, first at least mainstream appeal farming simulator. It came out first in Japan in 96 and in the US in 97, and apparently it's taken off, and it's still going to this day, although I hear it's no good anymore and it hasn't been for quite a long time. By the way, I do want to ask also, does the moon ever play a role in any of these games? Because I've never played a Harvest Moon game where they even mention the moon. I don't even think you can see it a lot of the times. But anyway, what do I need to say about Harvest Moon? It's a farming simulator, so there's not any monsters to fight, I don't believe. There's not really any great hurdles to overcome, except for, you know, making money so you can buy animals so they can produce product for you so you can sell them to afford more animals, and it's just a cycle. There is also the social aspect of the game, you know. You can befriend villagers, even female villagers. There was no female player option in this game. Of course, by befriending them, what I really mean is that you find out their schedules and you stalk them throughout town so you can give them an item. And then you give them enough items until they feel obligated to you, and then, you know, you have a marriage. Of course, most of these games' appeal is exactly that. Finding a wife, making her happy, and having children. A happy wife and children, truly a work of fiction for some of us. Anyway, it's just literally a video game. It's there designed to waste your time. But if you really like this game, I mean, hey, why not? I played Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life when I was a teenage boy, you know, I really liked it. I didn't really realize how bad it was until I was an adult and again played much better games. But hey, if this is your game, more power to you. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I couldn't get back into it. But again, there's really not a lot of story to it. You play as I guess a young man named Jack, or that's his default name. You can name him whatever you want. And you come to this farm and you're gonna, you know, raise animals and try to get married in town. Although you don't have to do this. Yeah, by the way, you may be wondering, how is there an ending to this game? Isn't this like Animal Crossing or something where there's not really an ending? Well, believe it or not, there are many endings in this one, several, and you can get more than one at the same time. Now, as you may already know, time in this game passes as you play the game, similar to Survival Kids, like I mentioned earlier, and it also runs pretty fast in this game too, so watch that. And really, you just have to do your chores and go out into town and talk to people, and then once the day ends, you go to sleep and wake up the next day and repeat it all, the process. Now, days turn into weeks, turn into months, and after 2.5 years, you'll be graded or given an ending based on how well you did in the game. And the worst possible ending comes from what's called the failure ending. There's even an entire song in the game dedicated to it, and it's the darkest theme I think I've heard in a Harvest Moon game. As a matter of fact, just side note here, I think the music in this game has always kind of creeped me out, especially the town music. I'm not a music guy, but something about it just doesn't sit well with me. I don't know, let me know what y'all think. But anyway, you get a failure ending, and what that basically means is you did nothing. You didn't accomplish much, you barely had any animals, no one in town liked you, your character wasn't happy, your dog wasn't happy, the ranch itself wasn't happy, the damn moon wasn't happy apparently, and you just give up. Your character is seen walking out of the house, and Before he runs off, though, your only companion, your little dog, is barking, wanting you to return, and you just abandon it. The poor little doggo is like, no, come back, and you just run away like a coward. I mean, man, it'd be one thing if it was like the first week and you're like, man, I can't do this. I gotta go back to school or something. But just the idea that you spent 2.5 years here and now you're like, well, I did nothing, so time to go. Later, nerd. And just like bounce out like that. Like, damn, man. I don't know. But yeah, there's a bad ending in Harvest Moon on a Super Nintendo. So yeah, I mean, I'm just surprised this exists. Anyway, check it out for yourself if you want. But like I said, I recommend either getting Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life or playing Stardew Valley, or I don't know, going outside and planting something for yourself. I mean, why not? Anyway, with that out of the way, let's move on. House of the Dead on the arcade, Sega Saturn, and various other ports. So I called this video Hidden Gems because to me these games were sort of hidden to me. I didn't know much about them, but my worldview on gaming has expanded by doing this series because I didn't realize how popular this game was or what kind of a fan base it currently has. And watching it, this game looks amazing. I really want to play it. You can play it right now on Steam. I'm kind of poor, so I'm just going to wishlist it, but I definitely want to play it for myself. This was an arcade rail shooter. Well, what does that mean? Well, basically, you're on a rail. You don't focus on movement or anything like that. Your sole focus is shooting. You just point and shoot. Kind of like those arcade games, if you remember what they used to look like, the shooting games. I used to like to go there myself and play 2-player and just use both guns on the screen like I was dual wielding. I thought I looked badass at the time, but now I probably just look like a sucker. But yeah, these games were tough as nails, and they really only tested your reaction time and your ability for trial and error. The only really way to beat these games in the arcade was to have played them over and over again. I mean, if you could walk in there and beat it on your first try, I would be amazed. So these games weren't designed with a giant story. These games weren't really designed with a lot of gameplay in mind. The only thing you do, again, is point and shoot. That's why they're commonly called point and shoot games. But this game looks like a lot of fun, and it looks awesome, and I want to play it for myself. Now, I never script these videos, so before it slips my mind, I want to mention right off the bat, this soundtrack in this game is absolutely amazing. This game is a cheesy zombie rail shooter for the arcade. It has no business having such an amazing soundtrack. The final boss theme sounds like something out of Mega Man X, not a zombie shooter. This game, I really like it. I'm sorry, I'm gushing a bit. But again, it's a cheesy zombie shooter. Well, what do I mean? Well, there's not much to the plot, right? You play as some paramilitary organization, these two guys known as Rogan and G. Yeah, his name is just G. They're part of some organization. They're not really the police or the military or anything. But Rogan gets a call from, I guess, his girlfriend or fiance, and it just says, help. And they have to go to this mansion that she's working at. The mansion's owned by this guy named Dr. Curian, who is a mad scientist that has a whole bunch of people working for him, and no one's thought to stop him yet, I imagine. And when you get there, you immediately realize that this house is completely overrun with supernatural beings and zombies and things such as. And rather than calling in for backup or, calling the army or something, no, these two guys, Rogan and G, just go in there guns blazing and just start shooting things. I always think it's a relief whenever these supernatural beings can be taken down with just modern regular guns. I guess no one's ever thought to put like a bulletproof vest on a zombie or something. But anyway, there's really not a lot of plot here, and you can finish this game in like 30 minutes. Yeah, these games weren't designed to be super long. They were designed that you try them over and over and over again. Maybe frustrated, or maybe you just had something to prove. But there's really not a lot of plot here for me to talk about. But yeah, you and G go into this house to save your fiance and take down Dr. Curian, Throughout the way, you fight bosses, you fight zombies, you save other researchers who will give you extra lives or whatever. Now, I believe there are some branching pathways, like if you shoot the right thing. Again, there's no movement involved in any of this, so you just sort of get hidden bonuses. You can get extra points by getting more headshots or getting some bonus items that you get by, shooting them. Because, yeah, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a zombie, right? Anyway, you race to confront Dr. Kyrian, but he keeps getting away and sending more bosses after you that apparently just he controls completely. And you just shoot them. And at the end of this, you finally confront Dr. Kyrian, and he sends his greatest creation after you, known as the Magician. But the Magician immediately turns on him because he's super powerful, and he kills Dr. Kyrian for you, and then you have to fight the Magician. This boss battle doesn't look all that impressive, but again, the music is just amazing. Like I said, I thought I was in like the final boss of a Mega Man game. It's absolutely impressive, and I'm so happy to have discovered this game. So anyway, after you kill the Magician, there's one of 3 endings you can get, and let me go over them now. Now, in the normal ending, you complete this game without using any continues. And in case you don't know, a continue is when you get a game over, but you keep playing the game. But if you beat the game without any continues, but a score of under 62,000 points, I don't know what the significance of that is. If you know, let me know. But you will be given the neutral ending, in which you and G leave the mansion, look back, and everything's just ambiguous. Remember, you were here to save your fiance, but I guess she's just succumbed to this whole thing, I suppose. It's not really said. Now, the best ending possible happens when you score over 62,000 points, but again, you don't use any continues, right? By the way, remember when video games used to score you? But yeah, if you do this, you'll get the true ending, the canon ending, where you reunite with your wife who thanks you for saving her. I mean, I guess she was just hiding in a corner somewhere or something, but she thanks you for saving her, and I guess you go off with her, and that's the good ending. Now, to get the bad ending, you actually have to use some continues and score under 62,000 points. If you do, you'll be treated to an ending in which you go back to the mansion and you find your wife Sophie, only this time she's become a zombie as well. So ultimately, while you may have defeated Dr. Kyrian, you couldn't save Sophie, your wife. Again, check this game out for yourself. I used to play through here because I couldn't get a good way to play this reliably. It's on Steam, so check it out if you want. I would absolutely wishlist it because again, it's not that long of a game. The plot's not that deep. And check out the soundtrack on YouTube if you really have to. Am I allowed to say that? I'll say it. Yeah, check it out. This game just looks really cool. Anyway, with that, let's move on. If you've ever wanted to play a game where it feels like you can do absolutely nothing right, I invite you to play Long Live the Queen. Now let me get something out of the way as fast as I can. I like this game, even though I've just started playing it this week. I like it a lot, but I don't recommend it. I really don't. Because for one, it's a niche game and only a certain amount of people are actually gonna appreciate it or gonna like it. And hey, that's totally fine. But it is also incredibly stressful. And unless you're willing to just trial and error it for hours and hours, or you want to use a guide and just blast through it in 10 minutes, then you're gonna have a really hard time. And for two, the character design. I mean, I know it offends a lot of people, but I don't care. And I played through the game. I didn't see anything adult, really. So it's not a problem for someone like me. But I know a lot of y'all might not like it, so feel free to skip ahead. There's no problem with that. Anyway, for those of y'all that are still here, thank you. This game was released on Steam in 2013, and it's got somewhat of a cult following. I mean, there's even a wiki up on it. So this game is a visual novel scheduler simulation game. If you don't know what that is, it's kind of hard to pin down. They used to be very popular, though. It's similar to Tokimeki Memorial, or Princess Maker 2, if you know what those two games are. I covered Princess Maker 2 in one of my earlier bad ending videos. But this game, all you really do is make choices and make a schedule. So you play as Elodie, a young princess who is set to be queen now that her mother has unfortunately passed away. And until your coronation day, you basically have to survive. Yes, there are many, many pitfalls in this game. There's many bad endings that you can get. It's sort of notorious for it, as a matter of fact. There's many different ways this young princess can pass away, mostly due to assassination, right? It has this infamous reputation about it, and this game has been sitting in my Steam library for like well over 10 years. I think I got it as part of a Humble Bundle or something like that. But I decided to pick it up this week because I knew it had some bad endings in there, and I really like it, but it was very frustrating and very challenging. So all you're really doing is setting a schedule for Elodie to follow, and that's building your stats. However, there's so many stats, you'll never increase them all. You need to basically min-max, but you can't do that either, because if you have 0 in a stat, at some point you're going to get to a skill check where if you fail it, you're going to unfortunately pass away. It's very frustrating. In one of my playthroughs, I knew a civil war was coming. I didn't know why, but I knew one was coming, but something I did, so I followed the steps the same way, except I was able to get some more experience in military. Well, as soon as the Civil War did happen, hey, I won because I put all my points in the military. Only later on, a few days later, for Elodie to be sent some chocolates, and I already knew these were poison from my earlier playthrough. However, she didn't, and something I did differently made an effect that she ate the chocolate immediately and then passed on. And I was like, man, all of that work. I'm sorry, I was busy trying to stop a civil war. I didn't have time to learn about fucking potions, damn it. So it's very difficult and frustrating, but it's a lot of fun too. Again, it's not for everybody. As far as the story goes, it is a bit complex, and frankly, yeah, I'm not a fan. I don't think it's a bad story, it's just a story. You're gonna be too focused on trying to keep her alive to worry about what in the hell the plot or the deep hidden lore is. It's basically a medieval adventure, and there is some magic, and you can transform into a magical girl, and that's always fun. But apparently, there's bad endings tied to that as well, which we'll get into. But there's just so many pitfalls. You got to really be careful if you play this game. That's why I say I don't recommend it for everybody. These schedule building games are kind of old school, actually. I already mentioned Tokimeki Memorial. It's the most famous example I could think of. And if you've seen or played that game, you know how frustrating these can really be. Now, as far as bad endings go, there's quite a lot. I want to say there's like 12 of them. And the ones that I got were being poisoned, as I mentioned earlier. I also decided to go on a trip in the game, and we got ambushed by bandits, and I thought my medicine was high enough because this had happened before, but my medicine wasn't high enough. So yeah, my character got shot with an arrow and then bled out and died because she couldn't do first aid on herself, right? So that sucked. My very first ending, however, ended with my character still being alive. You see, I was crafty and cunning, and I knew some bad stuff was going to go down if I wasn't careful. So I played it as cautiously as possible. In fact, this poor little girl never left the castle. I was that careful. However, that wasn't good enough, as even if you don't interact with the outside world comes and interacts with you, right? And my country went to war, and I was forced to flee into some guy's hands that I agreed to marry because I can't deal with all this. I was like, the first person that offered to marry the princess, I was like, hell yeah, bet, let's do it. I immediately went for it because I'm like, I don't want all this stress, man. I can only imagine what that's like. But yeah, my character fled the country and was, I guess, forever a concubine to this other man. So, I mean, hell, she's alive, but that's pretty dark, actually. Now, the worst ending I saw by far is an ending in which you confront one of your aunts. At this point in the game, you should have some magic. You should have some understanding of how magic works in the game. And your character will confront their aunt saying, hey, you have magic too, let's be witch besties or whatever. And she flat out denies it. Now, if you push her on this, she will use her magic to put you in a living coma, right? But not like you're asleep. You're awake the whole time, apparently, but you're just sort of in a coma forever, helplessly watching as people try to help you, but you can do nothing about it. And you just lose power. It doesn't even say you die, it just says you lose power. So I assume that you're just in like a sleeping spell forever, not being able to do anything, which sounds just absolutely horrifying. Of course, there's many other endings, like I've already said. You can drown, you can be killed in a duel, you can be assassinated, you can lose your power in one way or another. But yeah, check the game out for yourself if you want to. I appreciate you sticking with me. I don't want to spend too much time on this one because I know this one's going to be wildly unpopular. But hey, I thought it was interesting. And if you're one of those that thinks games like these could be interesting, check it out for yourself. Let's move on. So with this one, we're not necessarily talking about a bad ending. Oh no, we're talking about the ending. As in, there's only one ending, although supposedly there was going to be multiple endings at one point in the game. This game's scenario writer, Suda51, and if you don't know who that is...
Moe.
Yeah, that guy, the man behind No More Heroes and Killer 7, decided he wanted a much darker tone for the ending of this story for some reason. And what game am I talking about? Well, none other than Super Fire Pro Wrestling on the Super Famicom all the way back in 1994. Yeah, that's right. So if you know with this one. This is a wrestling game. Yeah, I said that, a wrestling game. I mean, what, are you surprised? How many times have I talked about Harvest Moon already? And if you think that one's not wild enough, how about the bad ending in Just Dance 23? Yeah. So anyway, in this game, I mean, it's wrestling, right? Wrestling is one of those few sports that gamers seem to really like for some reason, along with NASCAR, again, for some reason. And while I personally don't know much about it other than to know that there's really awesome moves and real life grapples and things such as that are used in wrestling, the story of this game is much, much darker than you would expect. So it's a Japanese wrestling game. You play as Sumisu Morio, as he quests to become the greatest wrestler and beat all the other wrestlers to get to the championship title and to earn that coveted belt. But along the way, he'll have a love interest that rejects him. He'll have his trainer be murdered at some point. And then at the end of it all, when he gets the belt, it's a somber moment. It's a melancholy moment as he's the champion and he addresses the crowd. And you would think, okay, well, could possibly happen now? I mean, yeah, a lot of bad things happened, but what? Oh no, trust me, I can't even believe this is real. But then again, we're talking about Suda51 here. So at the end of this game, after you've wrestled your way to the top and after you've given your speech, all you're given in the game is a black screen that says 3 days later in Japanese. Oh, by the way, I don't think this game was ever officially translated, but you can get a fan translation right now. But the screen says 3 days later. Then you're shown a background with nothing but a house, a car in the driveway, and some daylight. And the screen is quiet for a few seconds. And then finally, you hear the infamous shot ring out. And then that's it. You're given the credits. So, okay. I guess one might say maybe the car was backfiring. Yeah, sure. But at the same time, we know what's really going on here. What this game is trying to tell us, from what I understand, that it's lonely at the top, or maybe once he achieved his dreams, everything that he lost along the way, he couldn't bear it anymore. And with nothing else to fight for, he just surrendered, I guess. He stopped fighting. And this is tragic. And I'm sorry if I'm a bit jovial about it. It's just, it's insane to understand that this is real. This is a real thing that happened in 1994 on the Super Famicom. I mean, something like this happening in 2025 would be controversial and people would try to cancel it or ban it or whatever. I'm sorry, this is crazy. Check out the game for yourself though, because the game looks like a lot of fun. I will say that. Yeah. Wow. Dark. That's Suda51 for you though. Let's move on. Alright, so I think I might know what you're thinking. Red Shellman, how in the world is the Fate series a hidden gem? What's hidden about the Fate series? It's one of the most popular anime in the East and the West. Well, yes, that's true, but many people don't know that this series originated from a visual novel released in 2004. And on top of that, not just any visual novel, but an eroge. That's right, a visual novel with erotic elements. Yes, you can bang King Arthur, but we'll get into that. Not only that, but this was released in 2004 and never got an official English release up until last year. That's right, over 20 years this game was out, and everybody knew the Fate series. Everybody'd seen the anime. You might even have some Fate merchandise, but many people have no idea its origin. And I'd like to tell you about that now. So if you know the Fate series, you know it's absolutely complicated. I'm going to give you a brief summary of the series, as brief as I can, at least this game. Now I know when someone says that, they mean, grab a snack, it's going to be a while. Just like when someone tries to explain the plot of Evangelion, but I will be brief. Alright, so the Fate series. So I'm not going over the Fate series as a whole, but just suffice it to say that for the most part, it's about a magic war involving masters and servants, but not like masters and servants like slaves, but as in masters are mages, kind of like wizards. They use magic and they summon their servants. Servants are typically heroic spirits like King Arthur, or like Cuchulainn, or even William Shakespeare, of all people. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if William Shatner was one too. And these servants fight each other on behalf of their mages, who also get in on the battle, but the mages aren't nearly as powerful. They're fighting over the Holy Grail. The winner of this will become the holder of the Holy Grail and are supposed to be granted a wish, although I don't think I've ever seen that happen in any of the Fate series, so let me know if that's ever happened. Fate is complicated, okay? I'll just tell you this outright. Fate is complicated, but we're just going to talk about this one visual novel. So good news, if you've seen the anime, if you've seen the anime, you don't need to play the game. I mean, I'd recommend it. You will get some more information, but the animes follow the plot of this game pretty well. You play as Shiro Emiya, who is a young man who was saved from a tragedy over 10 years ago by his adopted father, Kiritsugu Emiya, who plays a big role in the series as a whole. And in this game, there's 3 routes, right? There's 3 different games involving the same story, although there's some differences. It starts with Fate Stay Night, in which it focuses on Shiro's relationship with Saber, so you can bang King Arthur, basically. Then there's Unlimited Blade Works, in which it focuses on Shiro's relationship with Rin Tokasa, which is one of his classmates, who he can bang. And finally, there's Heaven's Feel, which focuses on Sakuramato, another one of Emiya's classmates, who again you can bang. Now, I don't believe there's any 2 ways, or 3 ways, or 4 ways going on here. I don't remember that happening in the game, but so basically when you're on a route, you're focusing on one of the 3 heroines, right? And of course, in later spin-offs, you can also bang Medusa, so in case you're worried about that, and there you go. I believe it's called Fate Ataraxia or something like that, but there's so many Fate properties. Oh my goodness. So I'm not going to spoil the main plot of these, because for one, it would take me 30 minutes and this video is long enough as it is. And for 2, either play the game or go watch the animes. I recommend that either way. I don't want to spoil it for you at all. I recommend you check it out. But what I am going to say is that what the anime doesn't show you just how brutal and deadly this game really is. And the visual novel has just an insane amount of bad endings. I believe there's around 40 of them. So, yeah, no, I said that 40 bad endings you can get, and they do not end well for Shiro or any of his friends or his heroines. Trust me, the anime, while it does portray it as being a deadly war and people die when they are killed, obviously, but the visual novel goes into gory details, and it's dark, especially involving this one little demon character who I'm going to talk about. I'm going to be spoiling the first 2 bad endings you can get, and you can see the rest for yourself. I really wanted to talk about this character because a lot of people think that Ilya is just a little girl, she's innocent in all this, and that she's helpless. If you've seen the animes, you know, bad things typically happen to her in the end. But in this visual novel, it shows that Ilya is an absolute monster. She is a psychopath, and she's a little demon girl, basically. And a lot of people don't know that. And I'm going to illustrate for you in these first 2 bad endings just how evil she really can be. Now, Emiya, as a whole, wants no part in this war. He doesn't want to hurt anybody, but he's accidentally thrust into it when, for whatever reason, he's able to summon his servant, Saber, to save him from Lancer. You may know this, but in the beginning of the story, Rin, another master, takes Shiro to the church. I mean, it's getting complicated already, I know. Takes him to the church where Kotomine is, who's like the overseer of these games. And she tells him basically, if you don't want to be a part of this war, you can bow out and Kotomine will keep you safe. But if you know Kotomine, that's far from the truth. But anyway, you can choose at this point as Emiya to say, yeah, I don't want no part of this, and to give up your rights to fight, to give up Saber, and then just be done with it. Just wash your hands of it. And that should be it, right? Well, Shiro Emiya later on walks home and is ambushed by Ilya and her servant Hercules. Yeah, Hercules, the big old boy, the big demon boy. And Hercules assaults Shiro and basically one-shots him. Shiro already had no way to defend himself against just like a regular person, but then we have this magical Hercules come in and slice him up. And Ilya then... Now, if you know, you know, when it comes to Ilya and Shiro's relationship, I'm not going to spoil it. But basically, Ilya's there just to kill him for no reason, right? If you think about it. And he tries to tell her, look, I'm not a part of this war anymore. But she's just like, oh well. And then later on, come to find out, she keeps him alive so that she can take him back home to do God knows what with him. I guess to keep him as a prisoner, to torture him or whatever. But the next bad ending gets even worse. The next bad ending comes almost immediately after that. So if Shiro decides to work with Saber and to stay in the war, him and Rin are walking home with Saber until they're ambushed by Ilya and Hercules. You may remember this in the anime, but they get ambushed and Saber tries her best to hold off against Hercules, but Shiro has a choice to make. Shiro can either try to support Saber or run away with Rin. If he chooses to run away with Rin, that is the worst possible thing he could have done, as trying to run from Hercules is futile. Hercules knocks Saber aside, jumps in, and kills Rin almost immediately. And then as Shiro's trying to run away, Hercules jumps Shiro, hits him so hard the man goes flying all the way, just God knows how far, and he's barely alive when Ilya confronts him. And it's at that point that Ilya says some of the most, I mean, it gives me goosebumps. It was horrible. Something is truly, oh my God. She tells Shiro, you're about to find out how good your life has been up to this point. And if you think about that, basically, she's about to take him wherever and torture him till the end of time. See, she's already kept him alive. Even though he should be dead, she's been keeping him alive using magic. And she's probably going to go and torture him, do whatever the hell she wants to with him. And it's dark. I mean, you have to see it for yourself. And when you listen to the voice acting, too, it's haunting. So a lot of people think Ilya is just this cute little innocent little girl, which, by the way, she's older than Shiro. Just if you look at the lore. But she's an absolute monster. Hercules is a monster. And if you make any wrong choices in this visual novel, and it's super long, by the way, if you make any of the wrong choices, you can get one of almost 40 bad endings. And I think it's a shame people don't know about this game. I recommend you check it out, because a lot of people will watch the anime, they won't bother with the visual novel, but at least understand that this is where it all began. Thanks to the creator Kinoko Natsu and Type Moon. So anyway, if you're interested, check it out. You can get it on Steam, watch the anime, or whatever else. Let's move on. Alrighty, that was more bad endings in games, the hidden gems. And hey, I learned a lot this episode. What do y'all think? If you have any more suggestions, I'd like for you to comment below. Give me some more that you'd like me to cover if I haven't covered it already. Of course, you can check out my full Bad Endings iceberg and my latest Bad Ending in-game expansion pack. They're all on the channel, all the icebergs. Anything you want to see, check it out. If you like it, subscribe, all that mess. Hey, I love you, I appreciate you, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care.